In 1997, all of America knew one name, Shania Twain. Her music dominated radio, charts, and stages around the world. Then she disappeared. No albums. No interviews. No clear explanation. This video follows that silence. No speculation. No embellishment. Only what actually happened, in the exact order her life unfolded. Shania Twain was born on August 28, 1965, in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Her early life was shaped by instability from the very beginning. When she was 2 years old, her parents divorced. Her mother moved Shania and her 2 sisters north to Timmins, a small mining town. From that point on, her childhood followed a pattern of constant disruption. Shania never knew her biological father. That absence created an early sense of uncertainty. There was no stable male figure, no consistent structure, and no feeling of long-term security. According to her later accounts, this lack of stability affected how she understood trust and safety from a very young age. Her mother later remarried Jerry Twain, a man of Ojibwe descent from a nearby reserve. With his arrival, the household became more volatile. Arguments were frequent. Conflict escalated behind closed doors. The home environment was tense and unpredictable. This was not a single event or a short phase. It was a sustained condition that lasted for years. Shania grew up in a house where peace was rare. Loud disputes, emotional pressure, and domestic conflict were part of daily life. As a child, she learned to stay alert. She paid attention to sounds at night. She stayed awake when others slept. These behaviors were not choices. They were responses to an unsafe environment. Later, in her memoir, Shania made it clear that poverty alone did not define her childhood. The deeper damage came from emotional and psychological stress. Living in constant tension shaped how she viewed herself and the world. Fear became familiar. Insecurity became routine. These patterns did not disappear when she grew older. They followed her into adulthood. Psychologically, this kind of environment often leads to long-term effects. Children raised in unstable homes tend to develop heightened vigilance. They struggle with trust. They seek control in areas where they can find it. In Shania's case, music became that area, but the foundation was built much earlier. Her childhood did not offer protection or consistency. It taught her endurance instead. She learned how to adapt, how to remain functional under pressure, and how to keep going without reassurance. These traits later appeared as strength on stage, but they were formed through necessity, not ambition. This period of her life explains much of what came later. Her drive. Her discipline. Her need for independence. The fear of collapse. None of it appeared suddenly with fame. It was already there, shaped quietly during years when stability was never guaranteed. Shania Twain turned to music early, not as a dream but as a way to cope. She wrote songs on her own. She sang to herself. It was a private habit before it became public. Music gave her distance from what was happening at home. It allowed her to focus on something she could control. Her family's financial situation continued to decline. Addiction and instability made regular income unreliable. There were periods when food was scarce. Bills went unpaid. The pressure did not come in waves. It stayed. For the family to survive, everyone had to contribute. At the age of 8, Shania began singing in local bars and clubs. These were adult spaces. Smoke-filled rooms. Loud crowds. Drunk patrons. She was a child standing on makeshift stages, holding a microphone that was often too high. This was not training. It was work. She earned around $20 a night. At the time, that money mattered. It helped pay for food and basic expenses. It was not symbolic income. It was practical. Without it, the household struggled more than it already did. There was no glamour attached to these performances. No stage lights. No respectful audience. Many people talked over her. Some ignored her completely. Others treated her presence as background noise. She learned to keep singing anyway. She learned to project her voice. She learned to stay focused when the room was not. This environment forced her to develop skills early. She learned timing. She learned how to hold attention. She learned how to perform under pressure. These were not lessons chosen for her benefit. They were the result of necessity. Music functioned as a shield. When she sang, the noise at home faded. When she performed, she had a role that made sense. On stage, there were rules. There was structure. There was a beginning and an end. That contrast mattered. It is important to be precise here. Music was not an escape in a romantic sense. It did not remove her from hardship. It helped her endure it. Singing did not solve her problems. It allowed her to survive them without breaking. By the time most children were discovering hobbies, Shania was working nights. She balanced school with performances. Fatigue became normal. Responsibility came early. These conditions shaped her relationship with music permanently. Later success often reframed this period as a sign of destiny. In reality, it was adaptation. Music stayed because it worked. It brought income. It brought focus. It gave her a reason to keep going when other options were limited. This phase explains why music remained central to her identity. Not because it was idealized, but because it proved useful when nothing else did. Shania Twain first stepped into national visibility at the age of 13. She appeared on The Tommy Hunter Show, one of Canada's most well-known country music programs at the time. For a young girl from Timmins, it was a rare opportunity. It showed that her voice could reach beyond local bars and small-town stages. As a teenager, she continued performing wherever possible. She later joined a local band called Longshot, which played top 40 covers. The band gave her structured stage experience and regular performances. For the first time, music resembled a possible career path rather than just a way to survive. That phase did not last long. The band eventually broke up. With it, the brief sense of momentum disappeared. Reality returned quickly. Without stable income from music, Shania took physically demanding work in northern Ontario. She worked planting trees in remote forest areas. The job involved long hours, heavy equipment, and isolation. It was far removed from any version of the music industry. Still, it paid. It allowed her to support herself when no other option existed. After finishing high school, Shania made a clear decision. She would not stay in Timmins. She left for Nashville, the center of country music. The move was not supported by a label or management. She arrived with limited resources and no guarantees. In Nashville, she sang anywhere that would let her perform. Bars. Small venues. Local events. Exposure mattered more than conditions. Her persistence led to a small but important break. A radio DJ in Toronto noticed her talent and wrote a short article about her. The piece did not make her famous, but it opened doors. She was invited to contribute vocals on recordings and soon became the lead singer of a cover band called Flirt. These steps suggested progress. For the first time, her effort showed measurable results. In 1987, that trajectory ended abruptly. Shania received news that her mother and stepfather had been killed in a car accident. The loss was immediate and total. It did not only remove her parents. It erased the life she was trying to build. She left Nashville without hesitation and returned to Timmins. Her 4 younger siblings were still minors. Someone had to take responsibility. Shania assumed that role. Overnight, she became the primary caregiver. For the next 6 years, her focus shifted entirely. She put her career on hold. There was no partial commitment. She worked at local resorts and small venues to cover basic expenses. The income was modest. It was enough to survive, not to advance. During this period, music served a different purpose. It supported her family. It no longer served her ambition. These years delayed her professional development, but they also defined her priorities. She chose responsibility over momentum. By the time she returned to the industry, she carried more experience, more discipline, and a deeper sense of obligation. The cost was time. The impact was permanent. In 1993, Shania Twain returned to the music industry with a clear plan. After years of interruption and responsibility, she signed her first official recording contract. This marked a reset. It was not a continuation of earlier attempts. It was a controlled re-entry. That same year, she changed her stage name to Shania Twain. The name came from the Ojibwe language and translates to, "I'm on my way." The change was practical. It created a distinct identity. It separated her professional life from her past. It also signaled direction. She was no longer trying to survive. She was moving forward with intent. During the preparation of her early recordings, she met producer Robert "Mutt" Lang. Lang had a strong track record in rock and pop production. He recognized her vocal range and her discipline. Their collaboration quickly became central to her sound. The partnership extended beyond music. They married in 1993. Their first major success came with The Woman in Me, released in 1995. The album blended country structure with pop hooks. It was not an experiment. It was a calculated crossover. The result was measurable. The album sold over 12 million copies in the United States alone. Singles received heavy radio rotation. Her audience expanded beyond traditional country listeners. Instead of repeating the formula, they pushed it further. In 1997, she released Come On Over. The album was designed for mass appeal without abandoning country roots. Songs were concise. Lyrics were direct. Production was clean and accessible. The response was immediate and global. Come On Over sold more than 40 million copies worldwide. It became the best-selling album of all time by a female artist. This was not a short-term peak. The album stayed on charts for years. To reach international markets, alternate mixes were released in Europe. This move increased radio play outside North America and widened her reach further. Between 1998 and 1999, she launched a world tour. Attendance was strong across multiple regions. The tour was named Country Music Tour of the Year. At the same time, Come On Over remained on the Billboard 200 for 99 weeks, setting a long-standing record. In 1999, she received the CMA Entertainer of the Year award. She was the first woman in over a decade to win it. The recognition reflected impact, not novelty. This period is often described as effortless success. It was not. It relied on strategy. Song selection was intentional. Image control was consistent. Visual presentation supported the music. Decisions were coordinated. The result was historic, but it was built through planning, not myth. In 2003, Shania Twain faced a health crisis that altered her life. While preparing for a major tour, she went horseback riding and was bitten by a tick. The bite transmitted Lyme disease. At first, the symptoms were unclear. Dizziness appeared. Balance became unstable. Physical coordination declined. These changes were not temporary. As the illness progressed, it affected her voice. Control weakened. Range narrowed. Endurance dropped. For a singer whose career depended on precision, this was critical. The damage reached the vocal cords. Singing became unreliable. Performing live became risky. Studio work slowed. The instrument she had relied on since childhood no longer responded the same way. Treatment was complex. Recovery was uncertain. The timeline was unclear. During this period, Shania struggled with identity. Music had always been functional. It provided income. It provided structure. It provided purpose. When her voice failed, that structure collapsed. The loss was not only physical. It was personal. Before she could adjust to the illness, a second blow followed. In 2008, her marriage ended publicly and abruptly. Her husband and longtime producer, Robert "Mutt" Lang, had an affair with her close friend and assistant. The betrayal cut through both her personal and professional life. The partner who helped build her sound was now the source of its breakdown. The divorce finalized what the illness had begun. Trust eroded. Stability vanished. Control slipped away. Shania later described this period as total collapse. The foundation she had built over decades failed on multiple levels at once. She spoke openly about this experience in an interview with Oprah Winfrey. She did not frame it as a comeback story. She described confusion. She described grief. She described a sense of being erased. Losing her voice and losing her marriage happened in close succession. Together, they removed her reason to continue. After the divorce, she withdrew from public life. She stopped touring. She stopped recording. Interviews became rare. Appearances disappeared. This was not a strategic pause. It was a retreat. She needed distance from the industry that had once defined her. During this time, she questioned whether she would ever return. The stage no longer felt safe. Music no longer felt reliable. For the first time, survival did not have a clear solution. This phase marked the lowest point of her career. Not because of one event, but because multiple losses converged. Health. Marriage. Identity. Each reinforced the other. Recovery would require more than time. It would require rebuilding the meaning of music itself. After years of withdrawal, Shania Twain began rebuilding her life step by step. The process did not start with music. It started with stability. During this period, she formed a close bond with Frederick Thiebaud, the former husband of the woman involved in her previous marriage. Their connection was not public at first. It developed quietly, based on shared experience and trust. They married on January 1, 2011, in Puerto Rico. The ceremony was private and small. There was no media spectacle. The decision reflected her state of mind. She was not returning to the spotlight. She was rebuilding a personal foundation. At the same time, she addressed the issue that had ended her career, her voice. The effects of Lyme disease had not resolved on their own. She underwent multiple surgeries to restore control of her vocal cords. The procedures were complex. Recovery required patience and repetition. Progress came slowly. There were setbacks. Improvement was not guaranteed. Rehabilitation involved relearning how to sing. Muscle memory had changed. Technique had to be adjusted. Sessions focused on control, not power. The goal was function first. Performance came later. This process took years, not months. Her first musical statement after this period was not a full album. In 2011, she released the single Today Is Your Day. The song did not aim to dominate charts. It marked presence. It signaled that she was active again. It was a controlled re-entry. Later that year, she returned to live performance through a Las Vegas residency titled Still the One. The format reduced risk. A fixed venue allowed consistency. Shows could be adjusted to her physical limits. The residency ran successfully for 2 years. Audiences responded. Critics noted improvement. Most importantly, she proved she could perform regularly again. This period restored confidence. With stability in place, she began working toward a full studio album. The process was slow. She took time to select material and producers. Control mattered more than speed. In 2017, she released Now. The title reflected timing rather than nostalgia. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. The result confirmed that her audience remained. The success did not rely on past hits. It relied on presence and credibility. This return was not framed as a comeback in the traditional sense. She did not attempt to recreate earlier dominance. Instead, she redefined her role. She performed within limits. She chose visibility carefully. By rebuilding health, relationships, and professional structure in that order, Shania regained control. The return worked because it was measured. It was based on recovery, not pressure. In recent years, Shania Twain has shifted how her story is presented. The focus is no longer on dominance or record-breaking numbers. It is on context. What she endured. What remained. What still works. In 2022, Netflix released the documentary Not Just a Girl. The film followed her life in a linear, factual way. It did not dramatize events. It used archival footage, interviews, and first-hand accounts. The documentary reframed her career. It showed success and collapse as connected phases, not opposites. The response was strong. Viewers understood her trajectory as a long process, not a single peak. That same year, A greatest hits collection accompanied the film, along with a new song of the same name. The release served two purposes. It reintroduced her catalog to a new audience. It also placed her voice in the present, not the past. In 2023, she released Queen of Me. The album did not aim to compete with her 1990s output. The sound was direct and contemporary. The lyrics reflected confidence without nostalgia. Critics noted consistency rather than reinvention. The project confirmed that she remained active on her own terms. Following the album, she launched a world tour. The schedule was demanding but controlled. Performances focused on connection, not spectacle. Her setlists balanced classic hits with newer material. Audience response showed loyalty across generations. Attendance remained strong in multiple regions. Her current public image is deliberate. She does not pursue constant visibility. Interviews are selective. Appearances are planned. She does not attempt to replicate her earlier chart dominance. Instead, she maintains relevance through clarity and presence. Industry perception has shifted as well. She is no longer discussed only as a country pop crossover artist. She is cited as a case study in endurance. Health setbacks. Public betrayal. Long absences. Each phase altered her trajectory, but none ended it. Younger artists reference her for control and longevity. Not for trends. For structure. For discipline. For knowing when to step back and when to return. Today, Shania Twain occupies a different position. She is not chasing peaks. She is sustaining a career. Her influence extends beyond genre. It rests on survival, adaptation, and measured reinvention. Her legacy is no longer defined by sales alone. It is defined by continuity. She remained present despite disruption. That consistency is what endures.